I would give my perspective, and you can also hear because I haven't heard his honest feedback as to
on this.
how did he conceive.
I think it's a little too late to get his honest feedback.
No, but again, what we tried to do was, so we aimed to again educate ourselves as much as we could. So I read up on how to create a brand name. I started studying scientific articles or how agencies do create brand names.
Yeah, there's a method to this
So
madness.
there's a linguistics study that I looked at about what your brand name should sound like. So you just trying to do as much research as we could. I even had a list of 400 names, which was much more than necessary.
Wow.
On just trying to shortlist and see what brand names fit perfectly. And I think when I got too overwhelmed, then I turned to Osama and I was like, please give us something.
Tell us a little bit about how it was 400 brand names.
So it was a long, tedious process.
Wow.
We had some good names, some really bad names, but I think it was important in the process of trying to understand why brands are named a certain way, why certain letters come into place, why certain syllables are required, number of certain syllables. So that process really helped us in, I think, working better with Osama in doing this drill as well, and eventually trying to decide on a name.
Now that we know that Hamza has 400 names, tell us about what it was like to come up with.
No, I'm glad he mentioned this. So I thoroughly remember him saying, "Hey Osama, I have a list of like I have done this, and I was actually super. So it was very refreshing for me that a client has done not only his due diligence, but is also very much involved in the process. He said, I have a list of 400 names, you can tell me what do you think about it. And this is where I'll briefly touch on the topic of entrepreneur's dilemma, or what we could say the creative tunnel vision. So there are times when a creative or an entrepreneur gets indulged and absorbed and immersed in a process so much that they lose sight of the process, or like what's the process like. And this is that time when you need to have some external subject matter consultants, expertise, or at least focus groups who can guide you in the right direction. So I said to Hamza that I would love to hear those 400 names as well, but I would not want to bias myself with your research. So maybe we can start off, instead of going with 400, we would rather, instead of going with the process of deletion that we are deleting from 400 to 1, let's reverse the process. Let's start with, let's say, 4 names first. If it sticks, it sticks. And then if it doesn't stick, we add 4 more. And then you add 4 more.
We'll shuffle.
The very first name, other than the other names we recommended as our primary candidate, was adopted. And here I would like to add that the reason why we have at the moment nom/s is the fact that during our research we realized that most of the snack brands in the world, interestingly enough, there's no like method to madness though, but there was this one common denominator. All of them were ending on S. Without naming the brand names, all of them mostly, if there are a chips brand or a snack brand, they end on S. Reason being, they go with the unit-based approach. So for instance, in this case, if you are sharing one chip of Noms nachos, we would call it Nom, whereas the collective is Noms. So we were like, we might as well just follow it, but at the same time, our goal was the name has to be so small and so easy on the tongue, and it also has to be multinational in terms of its understanding. So this is where we came up with the name. Also, the thing with names is they grow on you. For the first time you hear them, I guess you become a bit iffy, but second, third, fourth time.
But this name was immediately chosen.
I think it's a really fun,
was immediate.
quirky sort of a name.
Yeah, it was immediately chosen. When
I think it's also very nostalgic to people who watched, for instance, Sesame Street and gone off of the Cookie Monster. And it was for me, it was that sort of touch point where they was banking off of that concept of nostalgia too.
I also feel it's very easy to pronounce. Because it doesn't matter
that was one of the criteria.
Yeah, but
you cannot go wrong with this.
dialects हैं,
you cannot go wrong with the
in
pronunciation.
any language or whatever. Norms.